Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a science fiction psychological horror film, The Cell. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The police find a dead female body in a river somewhere in a remote area. So far they have found 6 cases with 6 female victims being murdered in the same abnormal way. It's revealed that the killer trapped his female targets in a cell made of glass, where they were kept and tortured brutally. The killer even used an automatic timer to ensure that water would slowly fill the cell and bleach the body underwater. What's more, he used a hoist to suspend himself above those victims' bodies and enjoyed himself with the whole execution process, which would last for as long as 48 hours. After that, the killer took the bodies to his home and made them into doll-like puppets. The police speculate that the killer must be extremely obsessed with dolls. After investigating the crime scene of the 7th victim, the detective Peter finds some useful evidence: the green paint that is supposedly scratched down from a car, and a white hair that is shown under the DNA test, coming from a dog with albinism. As only a small amount of dogs would suffer that kind of disease, Peter checks the dealing record and quickly targets a man named Carl, who owns a car in green color, which is matched exactly with the green paint found at the crime scene. At the same time, the police are reported with the 8th murder case, where a young lady is kidnapped in the same way. Peter and his men locate Carl's residence soon and break in immediately for the rescue. They receive no resistance, but only find Carl lying on the floor, unconsciously. After a thorough search, Peter finds some tools supposed to be used for the crime, audio footage as well, showing images of the struggling victims. Carl is apparently treated as the murder suspect and taken away for intensive medical care. However, later from the surveillance camera, the police are astonished to know that, rather than being confined inside the same house, the 8th victim is placed somewhere else in a dangerous situation, where she's about to be drowned by water, slowly filling the glass tank. Knowing that there are only 40 hours left for water to fill the whole tank, the police have to rush their investigation on Carl in order to rescue the poor girl out before it's too late. Unfortunately, after a medical inspection on Carl, the doctor finds it unable to wake him up from his coma due to his schizophrenia, a rare disease that would make him stay comatose and possibly suffer a memory loss even if he's awakened up forcibly. The doctor, however, proposes to Peter a virtual reality experiment conducted by an institute that could allow psychologists to enter the coma patient's mind and coax into their consciousness. In that way, they may hack into Carl's comatose mind and find some clues for the lost girl. Later, Peter visits that institute and asks for help. The professor Catherine, who takes charge of this project, hesitates to take the mission at the beginning, for the treatment is still experimental and would cause some neurological damage on the recipient. After learning of its importance to rescue an innocent, helpless victim, she chooses to accept it. Catherine is later sent into Carl's mind. She's then brought to a creepy hell-like castle in Carl's dreamscape, where she later finds a timid young boy who tries to approach her, but keeps some distance from her at the same time. She follows the boy to a room and notices a big horse standing there. She walks to the horse and tries to be nice to it. Moments later, however, as the bell stops clicking, the boy rushes to push Catherine away from the horse, which is cut into pieces in a second by the glass cutters falling from the roof. Catherine is shocked by that, but finds the little boy just leaves away after saving her. Catherine continues her search, and later comes to a room full of glass enclosures. She's frightened to find many female dead bodies are locked inside and made into puppets. Meanwhile, a muscular devil shows up behind her, stuns her in the head, and takes her away. After she awakens, she only finds herself lying in a lobby, while the devil is standing next to her like a king, but with a gloomy face. He then approaches Catherine and attempts to make her one of those doll-like puppets as well. In huge horror, Catherine presses the escape button on her hand quickly, pulling herself back to reality. After her first contact, she gets to know the serial killer Carl is dominated by multiple selves. The little boy is actually the young, innocent Carl, while the muscular devil is Carl's adult self, who has been occupied with evils. To rescue the young girl, Catherine enters into Carl's dreamscape again. She finds the young Carl in the kitchen and gives him a little mirror used to signal her when he's in danger. Right then, however, the boy hides Catherine in the closet, and she gets to notice as Carl's sadistic father, who abuses him once he makes mistakes. Carl grew up in such a sadistic family and always suffered tortures and abuses from his father, especially when the father noticed that the mom allowed Carl to play girly dolls often, which however, was definitely treated abnormal and forbidden. The mom later left them, but the father never stopped his abuse of the little Carl. Catherine comes to another scene, which is the place where the adult Carl killed the first girl. Due to the long-lasting abuses from his father, he's suffering schizophrenia and turned to get obsessed with making the dead female bodies into doll-like puppets. Catherine appeases the adult Carl, trying to lead him out of the dark and find any clue to the missing victim, but to no avail. The adult Carl loses his control and suddenly turns into the devil Carl, who challenges her and knocks her out immediately, right before she can push the button to escape his dreamscape. With the red flag flashing on their screens, the researchers notice that Catherine gets in trouble in Carl's mind, but they can't do anything to help her out, because the escape button is designed for the recipient only. Any forced disconnection from the mind will inflict neurological damage on the recipient's own body. She has to be awakened up in Carl's dreamscape, and makes her escape herself. Otherwise, she would be locked there forever. Without any choice, Peter decides to risk his life to join the experiment, hoping to wake Catherine up in that way. Soon Peter is brought to Carl's dreamscape, and finds everything is creepy as hell there. Following the flashlight reflected by the mirror Catherine gave to the young Carl, Peter identifies Catherine later in a golden palace, who is dressed up like a gorgeous queen, and draws Peter's attention. However, the devil Carl shows up from nowhere instantly, and overpowers Peter before taking him to a table for execution, where Peter is tortured bloodily, with his guts pulled out one by one. While keeping himself awake through the great pains, Peter manages to reawaken Catherine's awareness by reminding her of something significant and unforgettable to her. The next second, Catherine stabs the devil Carl at his back, causing him to disappear suddenly and recover Peter's injury. Later, Peter and Catherine are brought to another scene. The young, innocent Carl shows up next to a huge glass water tank, where the 8th female victim is locked. They check the mysterious symbols on the tank carefully, and notices they must be the clue to find the missing victim. Right at that time, however, the devil Carl approaches near, and takes the little Carl into the dark. Missing the chance to rescue the innocent Carl, Catherine and Peter have to push the escape button, and come back to the real world. Later they locate a factory with the same symbol shown on the water tank, and rescue the 8th victim, enslaved in an abandoned warehouse. On the other side, hoping to rescue the young Carl, Catherine locks herself in the lab, and operates the experiment device reversely, which brings the young Carl into her own mind world, where it turns to be a sacred paradise, without evils and pains. The little Carl is more willing to get close to people there, and confesses that he doesn't want to witness more victims be killed anymore. However, since he can't overpower the devil Carl in his dreamscape, he begs Catherine to kill them both, which is the only way to stop the murder of more female victims. Right then, however, the devil Carl intrudes as a scaly snake man, and fights with Catherine violently. As Catherine is in control of her own mind world, she overpowers the devil Carl easily, and terminates him eventually, with a sword impaling his body. Meanwhile, the innocent Carl also suffers the same injury, and dies later in Catherine's maternal arms. While the serial killer Carl in reality is confined in his comatose status permanently. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Peace out.